Hi class! By the way, I am your new teacher for your literature course. Just call me Teacher Chris. So I know you are all ready for our discussion, but before that, I am requesting you all to stand up for our prayer. Okay class, before you take your seats, kindly pick up some pieces of papers and align your chairs properly. You better fasten your seatbelt because today we are going to tackle a story originated in China. It is the story of Akio by Lu Shi. Actually, class, uh, if we are the one who read the name of the author, uh, literally we read it Luxun or Lushun, but in Chinese, the pronunciation is Lu Shi. So the true story of Akyu by Lu Shi is highly symbolic in nature. Akyu is a representation of the people who lived in China before and during the 1911 revolution. So the word A is a friendly greeting and Q refers to the hairstyle at that time. So have you seen the hairstyle of the boys who live in China? That thing, that circle, that round cut here, that's what they call Q. Aq himself is a poor peasant with no particular profession. He is obsessed with never admitting defeat. So again, as a kind of symbolic representation of the people of China who always twisted things around so they never lost, according to the depiction of the author. So people in China class, only I don't know if there are few of them who accept defeat, but I guess most of them are a fighter. I mean, most of them doesn't accept defeat. So this is the author Lu Shi or Lu Sun, Wade Giles' romanization Lu Xun was the pen name of Zhu Chuorin. So he is a Chinese writer, essayist, poet, and literary critic. He was a leading figure of the modern Chinese literature. So at that time, Lu Shi is famous, writing in vernacular Chinese and classical Chinese. He was a story writer, editor, translator, literary critic, essayist, poet, and designer. Oh, he is even a designer. In the 1930s, he became the titular head of the League of Left-Wing Writers in Shanghai. So, we can't reach Lu Shi because he was so famous at that class. For you to understand more about the story that we have today, you have to watch the video that I will be giving to you and understand it.
Hello guys, it is our pleasure to introduce the true story of Akio by Lu Xun. Actually, Lu Xun is being adored by most Chinese people, so let's figure out what's going on in this book. And this is Datu.
Hello everyone.
So can you introduce some background information while he creating this story?
Sure. The true story of Akio is a tale by Lu Xun, situated in 1911 in a village called Weizhong in China. Lu Xun exposes all the ugliness and backwardness of Chinese society at the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So in order to let our audience understand it better, so can you introduce the general storyline about this book?
Sure. The story is about a man named Akio who goes through life as a loser. He picks fights with people, attacks women, and steals. But his issue is that even though he is a loser, he achieves spiritual victories by saying in his mind that he has really won. Akio is a bully of the less fortunate but fearful of those who are above his in rank, strength, or power. He persuades himself mentally that he is spiritually superior to his oppressors, even as he succumbs to their tyranny.
So in modern China, do you know like how people see RQ? And by the way, can you show some example about this to demonstrate what you say?
In modern Chinese language, the spirit of RQ is now commonly used to mock and insult people who do not face up the reality and deceive themselves into believing they are successful when they are not, or that they have unjusted beliefs of superiority over others. RQ represents all that is undesired in Chinese culture because these traits associated with him are portrayed to be repulsive and result in bad consequences as seen through the events that Akio goes through. In one scene, Akio is beaten and his silver is stone. He slaps himself on the face, and because he is the person doing the slapping, he sees himself as victor. The deep-rooted need to maintain a
And just calm down.
okay. There were two rich men living in the same village as Akio, Mr. Zhao and Mr. Zhen. The former son had just passed the country's examination. The good news was announced with beating of guns in the village, as was the normal practice. Akio, drunk at that time, pranced around with excitement, even though his achievement has got nothing to do with him. In his intoxication, he declared that he shared the same surname with the successful scholar, hoping some of the glory will rub on him. When Mr. Zhao, an honored landlord of the village, beats Akio in the fight, Akio considers himself important for having even a teeny association with such a person.
Moreover, Yu Hua actually wrote a book called To Live, and in this book he actually described a character whose name is Fu Gui. And can you reveal this character a little bit more for our audience? An example would be perfect.
The direct contrast Fu Gui in Yu Hua's To Live is a character that is able to overcome setbacks and his internal struggles with gambling because he recognizes reality. In the beginning, Fu Gui was a compulsive gambler with a very bad addiction. He was a wastrel who gambled away his family fortune, visited prostitutes, and treated his wife and her family very badly. However, because he recognized his problems and faced up to reality, Fu Gui sold his remaining goods to survive and avoid gambling parlors. As a result, he regains his wife's affection and becomes the head of a traveling puppeteer. Fu Gui becomes a devoted father and good husband, trying to make a living for him and his family on his family's former land. Unlike Akio, Fu Gui didn't allow his pride and ego to swallow his perception of reality and instead bravely acknowledged his mistakes and flaws so that he can change for the better and became a good husband and worker that earns money for his family.
After all, what we discussed before, so what is the ending for RQ and what kind of enlightenment he gave us?
Nobody feels sorry for him. On the other hand, they were disappointed that he died from hails of bullets and not from a blade on his neck. They were eager to see how a decapitation was carried out. They also felt cheated for not hearing RQ sing some songs before he died. This shows that having a poor character and wrong perspective will lead you to poverty and rejection by society. Fu Gui's life was a tragedy, but he was very positive to his life, which made his experiences natural to the others, causing no harms to the society. However, RQ wasted his life. In conclusion, although people were under same conditions, they can also make different reflections to the society, and it was because of people's attitudes toward their lives. Their lives had different values to the world.
So you actually made a construction, right? So that's pretty good. So all in all, we believe that Lu Xun want to use this novel to inspire people in contemporary society and to show them attitude is actually a good thing among work and career life.
So the setting of the story, or where the story happened, is at the Chinese village of Wishuang. And the story of RQ class has a first-person point of view. Characters of the story are RQ, Chao Tai, Pai Chujin, and Xin Shao Ye. So the theme of the story is somewhat the ideas about truth and deception. So what's real from what's not, or because in this story, Akio is somewhat fooling himself that even if he was already defeated, he doesn't accept it with himself. So that's why it seems that he's fooling himself and is hiding the truth within himself. So let's proceed to the symbolisms. So the true story of Akio by Lu Xi is a highly symbolic tale that is intended to criticize Chinese society during the early 20th century. So an example includes the quote, "Lies written in ink cannot disguise the facts written in blood." So meaning, no matter how you try to hide the crimes that you are doing, you cannot erase the fact that you're doing the wrong thing or you're creating crime, even if it is written in the newspapers that you haven't done something, that the society is clean. But in the real scenario, you can't deny the fact that crime happens within the society. So this sort of quote is the kind you can use to show the story's themes about illusion versus reality. So also illusion, the story also talks about illusion and versus reality. So the idea is that humans can't just change the truth about people just by writing something down. So do not believe in what is written. Don't easily believe. This certainly relates to the main character in the book, Akio, who is making up lies and deluding himself constantly. So the conflict in the story is man versus himself, or Akio versus himself, which includes the self deception or fooling himself. So the message of the story is that fooling yourself or lying to yourself cannot cause you improvement. So it is better to be who you are, or be yourself, so you could cite all your weaknesses and you can embrace it. So after you embrace it, then you can take a step on how to improve it to become successful. So it is very important being honest with yourself. So class, you should apply that value.